Well, good morning or good afternoon, everyone. We're very happy to kick off the activities of the Urban Planning Network or IURC North America with this webinar on affordable housing. I think I should know most of you because I think you are related to IURC, one of the faces, but in any case, my name is Sandra Marin. I'm coordinating this thematic group and I will be moderating also this session today. So please take note that the webinar is being recorded. You can relax because probably by Monday we will be sending you the link to the recording, all the presentations. You will also have access in the website, iurc.eu. And in a few days, we will send you a takeaways fact sheet. So you can now focus on the discussions and we want you to interact as much as possible. For that, the chat will be your main tool today. We want to make it simple. Sometimes we don't know where to put the questions in the Q&A, in the chat, so everything goes in the chat to make it easier. So I would suggest we can start by knowing where you are joining from today, so we can be warming up the chat a little bit. In the meantime, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Monica Norcuta. She's Program Officer at the European Union and in charge of the IURC North America, to officially welcome. Monica, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Sandra. Thank you, everyone. And very pleased to see quite a few familiar faces and names here. I think we had a chance to meet in Toronto during the latest and the most recent study visit there from the city of Hamburg to Toronto. So pleased to see you again, Abigail and Mercedes. I will be, on behalf of the European Union, I would like to a little bit zoom out on actually and explain on why does actually EU support international urban cooperation. I think it's important to stress that the EU has a very rich diversity in urban situations and models of urbanization. And that's why the EU's policy support for cities has significantly increased over time. This has led, of course, to numerous integrated sustainable urban development strategies and the creation of many initiatives and networks among European cities and international cooperation as well. For instance, the European Commission's paper Towards a Sustainable Europe by 2030 emphasizes that global cooperation is essential for a successful green and inclusive economic transition. And in this regard, the European Union's internal work on the Sustainable Development Goals and its external action are two sides of the same coin. We know that approximately 65% of 169 SDG targets require local and regional engagement, which actually highlights the crucial role of cities and regions in this global effort. So cities are pivotal in achieving the Paris Agreement and the EU ambition in climate neutrality by 2050, and home to 75% of its citizens. Cities consume over 65% of the world's energy and account for more than 70% of global CO2 emissions. Therefore, for the EU, urban action is essential for climate mitigation. Thus, the EU supports cities in accelerating the green and digital transformation to meet the Green Deal target of reducing emissions by 55% by 2030, compared to 1990 levels in the EU. And here comes the International Urban and Regional Cooperation Initiative, which is actually a natural part of the European Green Deal. As I mentioned, it aims to achieve climate neutrality by 2050. And one of the main expected results from this international urban regional cooperation program, under which we are all gathered here today, is the development of the thematic networks gathering cities based on the agreed areas of cooperation among participating pairings. And today, I'm very happy to be here and to open the first thematic network delving into the issue of urban planning and which aligns with the goals of environmental sustainability and social inclusion to facilitate a just transition in cities, I believe personally that this thematic network emphasizes collaborative efforts among cities to design planning instruments and strategies that integrate various city departments to develop and implement plans for a more inclusive and sustainable urban future. And I know, Sandra, you will introduce the experts from Barcelona and Toronto, but I really think that it's a very critical topic that we are delving in today, namely affordable housing, which actually has a very profound impact on social equity, very dear to the city of Toronto, I believe, economic stability and community well-being. So addressing these challenges, like the adverse effects of tourism, escalating property prices, gentrification, and housing shortages requires innovative solutions to enhance the resilience of urban areas. In conclusion, I would really like to wish everyone an inspiring first webinar under this International Urban and Regional Cooperation Program, and wishing you all a nice and interesting morning and afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Yeah, affordable housing is definitely a very broad concept, and challenges differ across and within countries. The pandemic has increased long-standing housing challenges, forcing governments to introduce emergency support. So I guess we need to rethink how we conceptualize, how we finance, and how we deliver housing solutions. So to inspire us today on how to shift the paradigm, which is the title of the webinar, we have today Josep Borrell. He's the technical coordinator at IMSOL in the Barcelona Metropolitan Area. IMSOL is the Metropolitan Institute of Land Development and Property Management. And then we have Mercedes Madani. She's the acting director for housing policy and strategy at the Housing Secretariat in the City of Toronto, who will be presenting today. But we also have Abby Bond, who is the executive director of the Housing Secretariat, who will be joining us also in the discussion. How are we going to work today? This is how are we going to organize this discussion? Okay, you will have, because we really want you to interact. I know we have not only very important cities presenting, but we also have them in the audience, and we want to hear from you as well. So you will have 3 ways to interact. One, after each presentation, that's the usual one, we will have some time for Q&A. You write your question in the chat, the speaker will answer to that. But we will also ask you to write your experiences. How? From now on, you can start thinking, but also when you listen to the presentations, I'm sure you will get into ideas. Think of experiences in your own city that you think have been implemented and worked, so good experiences, and share it with us in the chat. Maybe you can put just a summary sentence, and we will try to, depending on the time, try to give most of you, if possible, the camera. We turn on the camera, we turn on the micro, and you will have 2-3 minutes to tell us a little bit and introduce it. And of course, put in the chat your contact details if someone wants to know more, links to specific information. Okay. We would like you to think of experiences and innovative affordable housing approaches, any experience in rapid delivery or supportive housing, and in, for instance, funding mechanisms, because these 3 topics are going to be around our discussion today. And then you will have another way of interacting. As you can see, we will not, the chat is going to be your best friend today, and we're not going to let you disconnect. So the third part, and is one of the most important ones, we would like to, at the end, we will have some minutes to get your insights. One key learning, one idea that you're bringing from the discussion today, that you have heard in the discussions, in the presentation, some ideas, something you consider a key takeaway. We will do that at the end, and we will also have, in the meantime, some polls to rate, to ask you questions to rate. Very easy, but trying to maintain you very active. Okay, so I stop for now, and I give the word. We will start with Josep. Floor is yours. You will share directly your presentation, right?
Okay. Are you seeing it correctly? Are you seeing it correctly?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Okay. So thank you, Sandra. Thank you, URC, and thank you, Susana, for organizing this webinar. And thank you for inviting us to share our work. It's a pleasure for us to share it, because it's one of our aims is to disseminate the values of our work. To understand who we are, I shall explain that we are a non-profit organization depending on AMB, on Barcelona Metropolitan Area, and we promote social. So we try to find land and to promote social housing for rent and for sale. To understand our history and to understand the point where we are, you have to know that we had several crises in Spain between 2008 and 2018. And at that time, we had a very deep reflection of how the affordable housing in Catalonia or in the metropolitan area of Barcelona had to be. And we decided that we didn't have to do the housing that people ask us, but we had to do the housing that what society needs. So this changed the paradigm, because we started to think things in terms of general interest, and we decided that we had to be very, very generous to break with all stigmatism and things like that. But we had so people that would go to live there had some plenty of rights, but have some debts with society. And we are going to be very generous, but we are going to ask people to live responsibly. So we started to organize some competitions, and what I am going to show you is the result of these competitions, and it's what we have constructed since 2018. So you have to think that these projects are pre-pandemic projects. And to understand the context, in Catalonia, the affordable housing is housing that the price is limited, the surface of the apartments is regulated. It has to be habitual housing for the inhabitants. To access there, you have to be in the Catalan registry, so you have to have an income, regulated income. You have to win minimum and maximum income. So the qualification of affordable housing, it's permanent, so it's forever, and the transmission of the housing, in case it's for sale, it's regulated. The point is that, so these are the general rules. So our answer to the housing is we are always answer with integrated. So we are always working to find the integral sustainability, which is the exactly mix between the environment, social, and economic sustainability. So the answer in our projects is always integrating the kitchen, so putting the kitchen in the heart of the apartments, generating non-hierarchical spaces, chaining rooms, generating intermediate spaces for thermal comfort and intermediate spaces for social interaction. In this project, with this 85 social housing in Cornellà de Llobregat, as you can see in the center, the project is created not putting the dwellings like creating a puzzle. It's generating the cell. The cell is 360 per 360, and it's a very, we have proved that it's a very flexible shape and surface, because it's the Japanese room, which is the most flexible room, in the front of Frankfurt, the Marguerite Schut-Lihotzky, or the Le Corbusier's last house. It's 360 por 360. As you can see in this dwelling, this is a more or less 70 square meters apartment, formed by 6 of these cells. So you're entering into this apartment from the balcony. So this is like a private balcony, and you have 2 balconies. So as you have 3 13 square meter cells. It can be a 3 double bedroom apartment, but it can be, for example, you can have two access, so you can organize your office at the beginning of the dwelling, and you always have the kitchen in the city center, and you can have your living rooms or your bedrooms on the backside. But it can be whatever you want, because you can put the bedrooms here, or you can put the play room here. So there are no corridors, so it's very well optimized. The surface is very well optimized, and as you can see, it's like a hypnotic plan, and the dwellings can be can amplify, can be bigger or can be smaller, because the room can change. These are images of this building. It's been constructed in timber, and as you can see, the aim was to be very generous with architecture, with quality architecture. In Spain, affordable housing can be for sale, can be for rent, can be targeted social housing, can be cession of use. It can be generated by cooperatives, and it can be co-livings as well. Here you can see a comparison between what we were doing in 2009 and what we are doing more or less today. So you can see that in 2009, for the same surface, we had 3 bedrooms as well, but one was 6 square meter bedroom, the other was 8, and the other was 10. So it was a hierarchic spaces, and you know there are the places where homework we didn't have the same quality. So about housing design and characteristics, so when we changed our minds, so we start to think that social housing had to be a permanent social infrastructure. So we know who we are and how we live nowadays, but we don't know, we have no idea of who we will be in 100 years. And one of these buildings will be constructed, we expect 200 years. So we have to be very, very, very flexible about what we are doing. So architectural quality is always one of our aims, and obviously energy efficiency. So in all of these buildings, heating, it's not necessary. Sometimes we are doing because, you know, we cannot go faster than the society thinking, but in terms of sustainability, these buildings do not need heating and cooling. So I have talked about flexibility. All these dwellings are designed in terms of inclusiveness and neutrality. So taking into account all terms about gender perspective, because every place where homeworks have to be done have the same quality as communal spaces or private spaces. We are always introducing innovation, typology innovation, and industrialization as well. And we try to create identity building, because it's one of the things that people get involved. So we get people involved in our projects. We are a non-profit organization, so we are self-sufficient. So we do not receive money from any administration. So we ask for some grants, like sustainability grants and things like that, but we do not receive money from administrations. So as we manage lots of dwellings, low maintenance is always one of our priorities. In this project from AC Architectes in Gavà, it's more or less the same concept, but in this case, it's a succession of these cells. In this case, it's 11 square meter cells. So the cells are put in one next to another. We need a corridor, but in this case, it's not a corridor because it has 1.8 meters wide. The point is that at the time, it can be a place to do some activity. So here in the image, you can see a picture of the quality of this space where you can work, you can listen to music, you can play, or you can, dry your clothes, because it looks like a gallery in good quality space. So these are images of the building, and these are images or where we always, in all of these buildings, we create one space to explain all the values of our projects to the inhabitants, because we need them to involve it and to understand what we are doing and why we are doing this kind of project. If we compare what we were doing in terms of typologies in 2009, so it's more or less the same, but we had at that time a closed kitchen, and we had a classical corridor with no light or with a little window and different size bedrooms. And here we have the difference, or we can see the difference between these projects, and we can imagine that the quality of all the spaces is more or less equivalent. Another project.
Sorry, Giuseppe, 2 minutes.
Okay, this is a project of 30 rental dwellings in St. Just Desvern, and this is to explain how we work. So we get agreements with municipalities, we define the actions. The key point is the competition of ideas, then we implement, we construct, and we deliver, and we maintain. As you can see, so it's 5 dwellings per floor, and we have an atrium inside just to be very efficient and to get zero balance energy building. More or less the same. These are drawings of how we explain how the building works to the inhabitants. And one of our major, one of the most important things that we do is to organize these competitions to attract the best architects to do these kind of projects. And we try to simplify all papers, and we try to be very transparent with the processes. This is comparative of the projects. Another project, in this case, 40 dwellings in Sant Feliu de Llobregat, it's the same concept. And at the end, it's not only a matter of new social housing, this is rehabilitation. And this was, as we can see in this picture, a building offices, and we changed the use, and we introduced it 34 emergency dwellings. So we've done these, these halls, these patios to get cross ventilation and to be very efficient. And we put these social equipments or social spaces for the inhabitants. Nowadays, this last share is to explain you that we are putting a lot of efforts in social innovation, so in clusters and citizens' participation and cross-generational dwellings. More or less is like.
Thank you very much, Jose. Thank you. No, it's I think it's very interesting. I'm not an architect. I imagine we have a few ones in the chat that might be super happy with your presentation. From my side, I thought it was very interesting to see how the model doesn't think on who is going to live, but in the rights and obligations to return a benefit to the neighborhood. I think that's a really super innovative approach. So because it's also helping to develop a kind of an identity and sense of belonging.
Yeah, it's a matter of being generous and asking people to be very responsible. So in these buildings, sometimes it's forbidden to put a cooling system. So we have to express and to transmit people what we are talking about. So you are going to live in a high quality architecture building, but you have to live in a responsible way. And people is accepting this kind of concept very, very well. We have haters as well, but we always have haters also in normal buildings. So we decided to change our minds.
Thank you very much. Okay, I don't see how the chat is going, but I know. Let's see if there's questions. I remind you guys to start writing maybe your ideas, your questions, but also your experiences. I would say that I think there's people that I know for sure they have or questions or experiences to tell. For instance, I've seen that Robert from North Virginia is there. I think so. I don't know if Susanna, how does it go? Can they have access to the microphone or?
Yes, they do have access. And also if you raise your hand, we can give you access if you don't already have it.
Okay. Because I think I saw Robert saying
Well,
that.
I'm here, Sandra.
There you are. I
There you
know
are.
you. I'm sure you have a question and experience something. I know it.
I guess, I mean, the biggest question I would have is what are the income levels of the inhabitants? Is it mixed? We're home to for the top 10 income communities in the United States. So, 60% of median income here is $90,000 for a family of four with a 2-bedroom affordable unit at $1,700, which $90,000 for a family of four in Northern Virginia, $1,700 a month that's a stretch. So I'd be interested in understanding income levels and how the project is financed.
So shall I answer?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
So I explained to you that we both work with build to sell and build to rent. In the case that, so we usually, when municipalities gives us the land, we promote social housing for rent. And the rental price is more or less nowadays is more or less 10 euros per square meter. That means that for an apartment of 50 square meters, it's 500 euros more or less. And the price of the apartment have to be more or less the 30% of your income, because the maximum income depends on the surface of the apartment. So there are different levels. It's a little bit complicated. The point is that these buildings are low-cost buildings. So this building costs in Spain more or less 1,000 euro per square meter, more or less. The rental price is 10 euro per square meter, and if we sell, it's more or less 2,500 euros per net square meter. We are always talking about net square meter. About how we do finance, we ask, sometimes we organize competitions and we ask to private bank, but nowadays we have a credit with the European Bank of Investment that helps us a lot to finance all these projects. So we have, I don't know if it's correct, a currency of 3 years. So at the beginning, we only pay interests, and after these 3 years, we start to return the mortgage. So we balance. We are always balancing our economy, and the return of the operations are more or less 30 to 35 years.
Thank you, Joseph. I think I've seen Cassia from Nanaimo, I think. Raise her hand.
To be part of this webinar. I'm all the way from Canada, Vancouver Island. So this is the first time taking part because some of our colleagues went to Greece and got to meet some colleagues over there. So now we get to be part of these webinars. I really appreciate it. My question for Joseph is, I'm just interested in, you mentioned that in order to live in these spaces, there's a level of respect that's required that varies from other apartment buildings. Can you elaborate on that? Because some of the challenge we're having in Nanaimo is the cohort of individuals.
So it has been cut.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that I understood the question. So what I am trying to transmit is that these are high architectural, high quality of space, but you have to live in a responsible way. So the point is that, so in our society, we are very used to push a button and to have the temperature that we want. And in these buildings, it doesn't happen. So you need to relearn how our grandparents lived. So in summer, you have to protect, you have to know when you have to open the windows and when you have to close the windows. So our buildings are like bioclimatical machines, but people have to know how it goes, because we have proved that if you live while as we are asking you to live, the temperature, it's correct, but you have to learn it, and you have to be prepared. You have to know that you have to sacrifice some part of your comfort, but So I do live like that. So instead of cooling system, you have ventilators. Instead of a heating system, you have 20 centimeters of isolation. It's a matter of knowing that kind of thing. So at the beginning, we organized some meetings to transmit all these values to people and to help them to learn these kind of things.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go for one more question and then we go with the next presentation. Then we will have more time afterwards again. I see Thomas from Hamburg. Thomas, please.
Thank you, Sandra. So, Joseph, thanks for the presentation. So when we tell the people in our housing areas how they should behave, they have an easy way to react. They move away. So the question for me is, one thing is what we as architects and urban planner are thinking how people should live. The other way is, how do the residents accept that? And we have the experience in some quarters that we have wonderful energy efficient areas built, but we have a huge rate of people moving away. And so the question for me is, from your designed buildings, how long do these buildings stand already? Are they existing? And what are the experience? How long do people live there? Are there social problems that people, special people move there because they only can afford to live there? So one thing is that the offer of affordable housing, and the other is the social problems we get if we have special demands and special social areas where there are, besides the architectural issue. What kind of, do you have any experience? How long do people live there? Or do they say after 2 years, come on, that's too exciting for me, I move away and try to get another apartment? Or are there any social problems in these areas to be expected? What is this component from your point of view?
Nobody is moving from these buildings. The point is that sometimes some people is complaining about things, but when we prove that it's absolutely correct, that nobody is moving. One point is that one of these dwellings cost a third part of one of a private dwelling with no qualities. No one of these qualities cost in these cities. So this is the first point. The other point is that the quality and the quantity of light and the height on all the things that this building have, it's much more better than other dwellings, other normal dwellings that private promoters construct. So when people is complaining, we always have to think, well, where do you come from? And what do you think you are going to find for the double price? So they can choose, and nobody is moving. But the point is that we are being very generous so it's a very big effort for all the people working on this project, because the architects. I'm not the person that explains the project to the inhabitants. It's the architect who explains. So, and the architect won a competition. I'm part of the jury, but the jury is plenty of people. So we are doing, we think, lots of things well, and we are trying to transmit people that we are trying to do things well. The point is that, we are in several crises, so we have to be very responsible. It's a matter of that. So if you do not want to live there, we have a very huge list of people who want to come.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I'm going to make a stop here to go with Toronto. Mercedes, your floor is yours. You're going to share directly, right? Yeah.
Thanks, Sandra. Good morning, everyone. I'm Mercedes Madani. I'm the Acting Director of Housing Policy and Strategy at the City of Toronto's Housing Secretariat. Abby and I are joining you from Toronto, which is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee, and is still home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island. And we're very grateful to live and work on this island. At the Housing Secretariat in the City of Toronto, we are responsible for developing a range of housing policies and programs. We fund and oversee the development of affordable rental housing and affordable ownership housing. And our team is also responsible for administering our social housing supply, as well as our affordable housing supply when they're built and tenanted. And we do this work in partnership, not only internally within the City of Toronto, but with other orders of government. We have federal and provincial governments here in Canada that we work very closely with, as well as our nonprofit, private, and Indigenous housing sector who help us implement many of our strategies and programs. And this role and the work that we do is very critical, especially in Toronto, as we're facing really two housing crises in our city. One, which is the more commonly referred to crisis, which is experienced by people experiencing homelessness. But we also have a growing trend of our workforce, our middle income earners who are not able to find an affordable rental or ownership home in our city that meets their needs. And the numbers are telling the same story. As of end of April 2024, about 11,000 individuals in our city were experiencing homelessness, so we're either in the shelter system or on the streets. And about 60% of them experience chronic homelessness, meaning that they have been homeless for more than 6 months. We have a long wait list for rent geared to income housing or social housing in Toronto. There are about 87,000 households that are waiting for a subsidized unit, and their average time is somewhere between 7 to 10 years. About half of Toronto's households are renters, but about 40% of them are struggling paying the rent. They are about 40% of them pay more than 30% of their income on rent in Toronto. And about 80% of our full-time minimum wage households, unfortunately, cannot afford to live in the city. And the pressure on our housing system continues to grow. We know that Toronto's population is estimated to grow by about 1 million people by 2046. Canada has very ambitious and aggressive immigration goals, and we know that Toronto is a major attractive city for new immigrants to move to find jobs. The average rent for a condo apartment, for a 2-bedroom condo apartment in our city, is just shy of $3,000, and that's one of the most common types of rental housing these days in Toronto. So the rents are higher, but also if households are able to afford that price, there's actually not a lot of vacancy in our rental or condo market. So in our rental market, the vacancy rate is about 1.4, 1.5%, where a healthy vacancy rate is usually considered about 3%. So in this context of, dire housing and homelessness need by our residents, the City of Toronto has been delivering a range of housing policies and programs over the past 2-3 decades across the housing continuum. But today I really want to focus on one area that we have been able to shift the paradigm in our housing system, and that started actually with the global pandemic in 2020, when we had to double our shelter capacity in a very short span of time to allow for physical distancing. But at the same time, we made a pivot and we started focusing our attention and our resources into building supportive housing. Supportive housing is deeply affordable home that is mostly developed to help people experiencing homelessness exit homelessness to permanent housing. But it also has wraparound support services inside the building to make sure that the individuals, when they exit homelessness, they have access to those support services that they need to be able to live independently and improve their health and well-being. Supportive housing in Toronto is generally managed by nonprofit housing sector. They provide professional building management as well as customized support services for the tenants. And as you can see in this diagram, the support services that are provided in these supportive housing buildings are quite diverse. They can range from providing mental health support, connecting the residents to medical care, to a general physician. It can be connecting them with employment, education, training opportunities, but also it could be, more basic support services like laundry or meal plans or helping them open a bank account. So there are support services available in these buildings 24/7 to assist the tenants after they move out of homelessness to housing, to be able to have an independent life and really focus on their healing and their well-being. Since 2020, the City of Toronto has been able to support and advance 23 supportive housing projects across our city. This represents over 1,000 new supportive housing units that have been created either through new construction or through acquisition of existing buildings and then converting them to permanent affordable housing. And we have really been able to do this because all orders of government have come to the table to make this happen. So usually the City of Toronto provides land, or the nonprofit organizations bring land to develop new housing. The City of Toronto also provides funding and financial incentives to build and modernize these buildings if needed. And we also oversee the building. So this is again another new role that the City of Toronto took on. That took on since the pandemic, to be able to facilitate the construction of the supportive housing supply. We could not have done this without significant capital funding investment from our federal government. They have initiated a program that paid for 100% capital cost of building these supportive housing. That has been a game changer really for us in Toronto. And we have also been able to work with our provincial government to bring operating funding to be able to continue to provide support services to the residents. Again, we know that residents, after they move into these buildings, their needs change over time. So we have to make sure that we have ongoing support services available on site to support their tenancy. One of the ways that we have been able to do this quite rapidly since the pandemic is really using some innovative construction technologies. So modular housing, we piloted this modular construction through our supportive housing programs in 2020. Our supportive, so modular construction, again, there are modules that are built in a factory, then they're transported on sites on these massive trucks, and they're assembled on site on a traditional foundation. This has proven to be more time efficient, just because the modules can be built at the same time as site work is happening. And it also helps with reducing noise and construction nuances, so it's better for the neighborhood, for the community. The supportive housing, the modular supportive housing buildings that we have built in Toronto range anywhere from 44 units to 86 units. As you can see here, they can be anywhere from 3-story to 5 stories right now. From the outside, they really look like any other apartment building. The modular buildings have a commercial kitchen inside, as well as indoor and outdoor amenity space. There are tenant support rooms and space for staffing, because again, as I mentioned, there will be staff on site 24/7. So the staff will also have office spaces. Each unit is self-contained, so it has a kitchen and a washroom. It comes furnished with a bed, with a mattress, with a small dining set, a dresser, a full-size fridge, and other kitchen appliances. So it gives the residents the ability to be able to live independently in their units if they're willing to. They can cook for themselves. But as I said, the building has commercial kitchen in case folks need a little bit more help with meal planning, so they can have access to proper meals inside the building.
Mercedes, sorry, 2 minutes.
Okay, I'm almost done. The other innovation construction technology that we have recently started working on and will be using some of our upcoming project is mass timber construction. Again, these are the wood panels, wood building elements are manufactured and then assembled on site over concrete foundation. So similar to modules, again, this methodology helps us save some time, but they also bring more environmental sustainability into the building. And to be honest, looking at the photos, and Joseph, you had some of the photos from your mass timber buildings as well, they look really nice, which is very important because we want to make sure that people actually enjoy their living space and really feel right at home when they move to these buildings. So I'm going to stop here and look forward to the rest of the conversation. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Okay, how's the chat doing? Because I think there was someone from New York also and they have amazing experiences also, because I remember they were in IUC in the first phase of the program working with Barcelona. I don't know if they're still around, but yeah. Any questions, please raise your hands or comments. Jacqueline, so you were going to talk.
Well, I don't know if you're referring to me from New York, but hi, I'm Jacqueline. All these presentations are super interesting for us, and really, really appreciate it. And I share some of Robert's questions about some of the income levels related to Barcelona, which is relevant for us. But I think we also worked with Barcelona in the first phase, so remember some of this. Yeah, I think I'd be curious to hear from Toronto about to what extent modular and mass timber and these different construction innovations are proving to be, how are they working out on a cost basis? Because that's something that's been challenging for New York.
Yeah, really good question, Jacqueline. And again, modular and mass timber both are supposed to be more cost efficient. And I think, if it wasn't for the global pandemic, when we had, a lot of challenges across the construction industry around supply chain issues, labor issues, I think the costing would have been kind of more efficient. But again, we are working within a especially the first 2-3 years, we're working in a global pandemic environment. So the cost, we didn't see as much efficiency, I would say, as we would have expected initially. However, given the fact that we can do some of the work in parallel, as in do the site work at the same time as when the modules are being constructed, I think the saving on the time would actually translate into saving costs to some extent. And again, given that the environmental sustainability that these construction methodologies bring to the table, again, they also in the long term, we anticipate that they would translate into some cost saving for us.
I think, Giuseppe, you guys are in some of your buildings, you were also working with modular construction. I don't know if you have something to add about this, because it's a topic that is also very interesting for Toronto, about the cost that Jacqueline was mentioning.
Yes, we both work with mass timber construction and with balloon frame in wood and steel frame in steel. And it's a little bit more expensive than common construction, but I think as we are public and we want to be, give example, we have to look for opportunities. So there are always enterprises that are interested in knowing pilot programs and this kind of high level architecture, because we are working for society. So we always try to take the best from the materials. For example, when we work in timber, we know that we buy timber for cubic meter, so we try to put in the project the less wood as we can in order to get the lower price possible. And we try to explain, so people in Spain do appreciate the landscape that we get into the apartments. But for example, we explain people that wood have the quality that it absorbs humidity, which is very important In Barcelona, because as you know, we have a lot of humidity here. So you get cooler or you can get cooler in one of these apartments. So explaining why to people helps us to generate, what I was talking about, identity and things like that. Because at the beginning, people didn't understand here in Barcelona why we were constructing in timber, because it was not common. But we are constructing, nowadays, half of our construction is in timber. So we are pushing for it.
Thank you very much. I don't know if there's more questions. I don't see the full screen.
Yes, Robert is raising his hand.
Okay, sorry, I don't see it, but
That's okay. I just wanted to ask the panelists if they're starting to see more requests for office building conversion to residential. We have some areas here, Class C, B office space, that it's expensive to convert, and whether or not your localities were looking at incentives in certain areas to convert.
Yeah, maybe I can jump in on that. And Abby, I'm sure you have other thoughts on this. But yes, Robert, so in Toronto, we're definitely looking at that. It has been an issue that keeps coming back to our city council for consideration. Especially since the pandemic, we have a number of office buildings in downtown and across the city that have been sitting vacant. And I think actually within the next couple of months, we expect a report from our city planning colleagues on this to outline at least a proposal in terms of what this conversion could look like. We have done, or we have some experience converting hotels into permanent affordable rental housing. And so we have some experience around what it would cost and how long it would take to do that. So we can definitely apply some of those experiences should there be an interest from our council to do the conversion. But it is really a balance for us in terms of kind of wanting to make sure that we will continue to have enough office space for our businesses in our city. And also, again, if there is a conversion, how would that then contribute to other city building objectives that we have, for example, having incentives for affordable housing inclusion in these buildings. So really, really good question that we're thinking about in Toronto, and we'll probably have more on this coming in the next few months.
Thank you very much. I see Cassia is back because you had some problems and your hand still raised, so we got you back.
Apologies, Ray, we lost power here. Question for you, Mercedes, two questions. What's the federal funding program that you're receiving? Is it the Housing Accelerator Fund?
Rapid Housing Initiative.
Okay, rapid housing. The other question I have for you is, so for these supportive housing units, the nonprofits, I'm assuming, are operating the building. Does the City of Toronto retain ownership of the building?
Most of them, yes, but we have done it both ways. So sometimes we bring the land, we construct a building and then select a nonprofit operator to operate the units and the buildings for anywhere between 49 years to 99 years. In some cases, so in those cases, yes, the city will maintain ownership of the land and the building. But in some cases, our nonprofit organizations have been able to bring land as well. So in those cases, when they get funding, either from the federal government or from the city, they will maintain the ownership of the land and the building, and they will operate it. So we have done both ways since the pandemic.
And then does the City of Toronto have a housing authority to manage all of these units, or do you depend on the nonprofits to manage it all?
No, we have authority at City of Toronto. We are the service managers here, one of the service managers in Ontario. So we have authority to operate. And again, in most cases, we provide some sort of financial incentives to these buildings, even if even if we don't own them. So through those incentives, then we would require the nonprofits to maintain the rents or the building in a state of good repair. And be able to really stick by kind of what we have set in terms of requirements for who can get access to these units in terms of income levels and in terms of the rents that need to be maintained. So we do have a number of agreements that we would use to make sure that throughout the period of operation. The buildings will operate the way that they were intended to.
Yeah, and that's a challenge that we're having in NIMO and actually across British Columbia with some of the jurisdictions that I've talked to, is very few have the capacity to be able to manage these units. And so they depend on the private sector or the nonprofit sector to ensure that these units are being maintained for those that need it and not being turned into market housing. So yeah, I appreciate your presentation. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you very much. I've seen a question in the chat from Malaga. I believe that housing solutions must be adapted to the target population. That's why Barcelona Metropolitan Area is flexible and adaptable housing solution can be a good solution. What possibility do owners have to design their own home?
Yes, it's a very interesting question. So what we are doing are mostly these, flexible cells that can be used in a multiple activities. So these cells usually bring, moving walls. It means like doors from the pavement to the cell that can move. So you can connect these cells that in a way that the wall disappears. So two connected cells can be the living and dining room, but at the same time can be two different bedrooms. So this is how we are connecting these cells mostly. The point is that we are working on how we can move, the dimension of the apartments, and it's not that easy because of Spanish law. But in some situations where the building is considered, as a social equipment, I don't know the technical word in English, but it can be done. So we are working on it. So actually, we are in some buildings investigating on some kinds of social innovation, and we are working on it. But for the buildings that we have constructed, the flexibility is with this kind of moving walls. Actually, I was answering.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, we are following the discussion because I think it's been very, very interesting. And I'm sure there's more questions. In the meantime, I would ask Aurélie if we can run the poll for the rating. There we go. So if you guys want to, it's going to be 3 questions. Okay, if the panelists are trying to vote, I'm reading here that we cannot vote. It's only for the audience. So Mercedes, Abby can vote in your name. You cannot do it. And Joseph, you can vote either.
Maybe, Sandra, if the panelists can answer the questions live, that would be interesting as well. These ones from the poll.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what the poll is running because this is actually based in your questions. I don't know if you want to comment something, but it's how effective. So you can just mention if you want because you cannot vote it. But
so shall I explain some things about these concepts?
yeah, sure.
So for us, non-hierarchical spaces, it's very important at one time because it allows you for the cells to be very flexible. So in Spain, a common apartment is, has a little hall, a large corridor, one room, 1 6 square meter bedroom, 1 8 square meter bedroom, and another which is 10 square meter bedroom, which is the master bedroom. So if you were the second or the third child, you always go to the smallest bedroom, which is not, I think it's not correct. So when you are creating a non-hierarchy dwelling, everything is more regular and more flexible. That's why we are pushing on it. And when you do that, you have to change chaining rooms is very important because you can connect spaces. So you, for example, if you work and live in the same place, so you can organize an office and things like that. Because what was I explaining is that we know who we are and how we live, but we don't know how things are going in 50 years. So it's very important. And intermediate spaces, it are spaces that let us adapt to all the things. So, for example, a terrace, it's an intermediate space. So it's a space between interior and exterior. So in Spain, so where we have a good climate, it's very interesting to have not only a balcony, but also a terrace, a big terrace, when you can develop some activities of your life. But I'm not only talking about private intermediate spaces, but also communal intermediate spaces. So we are working on having less bigger apartments and having more bigger communal spaces, because it can be interesting for you to have a smallest apartment to pay less, but then to share a big space to do parties or some dinner with your friends or some things like that. So for us, intermediate spaces are very important. I don't know if Mercedes want to comment something about industrialization methods.
Yeah, Mercedes, go ahead.
I found it really interesting, Joseph, when you were mentioning that the flexibility inside the units, because that's kind of what we've been thinking about, haven't been able to get there, which is, again, people's, families and households change, right? So if if you're a single person, renting a studio apartment, and then, you want a bigger space, or you have a kid, you have to move. And then what if you like the building, you have a community there, and then that building doesn't have any, 2-bedroom apartments, for example. So being able to have that flexibility to adjust the units based on, as people's needs change for space and size and the configuration, that's definitely really, really, really interesting.
Okay, let's see. No impact, wasted. Okay, you all can see. Interesting. Okay. I was seeing we have a maximum of, let's say, 10 minutes left, more or less, and I have to give you some information for the next steps. But I've seen Robert, I don't know if you want to comment a little bit what you have mentioned in the chat. I think it could be interesting. Are you there?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I just wrote in the chat that we're starting to see now, as developers come to build affordable units, that sustainability is built in, energy efficient appliances, high levels of insulation, better efficiency of the HVAC systems. It's going to be 100 degrees here in Northern Virginia today, so making sure the HVAC is efficient is important. And we're starting, it's not EU, this is new for us, not for you all in the EU, but see some units now being built with solar to take care of common area space. And the Inflation Reduction Act now allows not-for-profits to take advantage of the tax incentives for solar. So it'll be interesting to see, as new buildings are built, whether or not developers take advantage of it or not. And for us, I think my eye-opening moment here is it's not so much land use anymore. These are financial deals, and there's financing upon financing stacked as to how to make these projects affordable and to move forward.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I don't see more questions for now. I don't know. It's interesting the model of supporting housing that you guys were mentioning. I've been working with other cities in Canada, and they have the same sequence. In the case of in Sol, Joseph, how do you work it? Because if I understood it well, Toronto is working with non-profit organizations. But in the case of our models in Spain, so far I don't know, they're not involved. So it's a different system. Do you have something similar where the non-profit organizations are somehow, working or involved in the supporting housing, or?
Well, we are a non-profit organization, and as I told you, we do not receive any fund from any administration. So it's very hard for us to do, social activity. So what we get agreements with the municipalities, because as I told you, when they give us the land, we promote social housing for rent. Our economy have to be always balanced, because otherwise we disappear. Because our activity has to be sustainable as well. The point is in the agreements, we can, keep 2 or 3 dwellings or some dwellings to special, very, difficult situation for vulnerable people. But usually what we do is get agreements with the municipality, so we rent the apartments to them, and they put with the social departments, they use it as they want. But we do receive rental prices from them in order we can keep promoting new buildings or new rehabilitations. So it's a matter of social services of municipalities who manage these kind of situations. You have your micro closed.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think Kasia has her hand raised. I don't know if it's a question or it's the last question. Is anyone?
Yeah, it's a question.
Okay.
Yeah, for Joseph.
Okay.
Joseph, so I just realized in your architectural designs, it looks like all of the buildings have courtyards to be able to have sunlight coming through both directions. Is that correct?
Yeah, what it's mandatory for us is every dwelling have to have cross ventilation, because it's very important for us, and that's an easy way to have cross ventilation. And moreover, usually it's a communal and attractive space to get, social relations and things like that.
No, I agree. That's quite a common model in Europe to have courtyards. It's hard to get them here in Canada. But can you just elaborate more on the jury process that you use for determining which design you're going to use for a site? Like, does every development have a panel where architects submit applications for their designs, but you have metrics in terms of what they have to follow in terms of the courtyard and that, unique design that you have for your apartments?
No, actually, we promote, socially. We promote innovation, construction innovation, and typology innovation. But we are very open because, we don't want people design the buildings that we imagine, because we need innovation. So we have a very particular way of organizing competitions, because they are absolutely open competitions, so everybody can apply. And there is no solvency for the architects, because we understand that if we are talking about ideas for buildings that will remain 100 years, we need young people to change our minds. So it's completely open, and we do not ask solvency for architects. So every young architect, recently graduated architect, can apply. The point is we are not crazy, so we ask them to have a team that have solvency. So engineers and structurists and installations and environmental have to have a lot of solvency. But the director, the architect, do not have to have solvency. Then we ask to everybody to give us an A3 just with the concept of the building. And of all of these A3, only with ideas, without pictures, we choose the 5 best concepts. And between these 5 best, we pay them a second phase competition. And between the jury, we decide the best of this second phase, which is 2 A2 drawings with images and things like that. So first phase is not paid, and second phase is well paid, and it's completely open to everybody. And that allows us to attract the best talent. And then we try to pay well. So we try to, you know, I think that one of the key points is that we are part of the team. So we are not the typical owners that see things always from the other side of the fence and just say, no, where can I see this? So we are part of the team, and we go together with the successes, and we go together with the problems. That's the key point.
It's very inspiring. I love the idea. Thank you.
You're welcome.
No, it's amazing, and we can see that in Barcelona. It's amazing to see how you can do affordable housing, having, you know, a house that you look and you think only rich people live there because the design, materials are amazing. So,
and it's low cost. The most important thing is that it's very low cost. So we have to be the point is that we have to be very intelligent to, you know, take the best of every material, of every situation.
That's the magic. And talking about Barcelona, because we have to close, normally this is a 90 minutes, so 1 hour and 15 minutes. And I have a little bit of German blood, so that makes me try to be on time. But we will have, we will really appreciate it if you fill in a survey to help us improve. Okay, because it's the first webinar in this part. So it would be great if you guys can fill in the survey that is right there in the chat. And talking about Barcelona, within this thematic network of urban planning under the IURC North America, so we will organize an in-person meeting, an event in the frame of the Smart City Congress in Barcelona, which is early November. We are going to organize and bring some of our partners there. So we would like to get from you, first of all, to know if your city is participating and if you will be interested in participating. Okay. So please write Susanna and me to tell us, look, my city is participating, or I will be very interested in participating. I know this is this was a public event. Participating with us is only for our network. If there's other cities, it would be great to meet them there. But you know, as part of our group, is for our network only for them. So let us know, write us an email and tell us if you are interested. We will be a couple of days meeting there where Giuseppe is going to take us to see on site this great example.
You'll be very welcome.
Okay, so you have the mail there from Susanna to see if you're interested in participating. And yeah, we'll be in touch. We will send you in a few days the takeaways from this session with some idea. And you can, as we said, by Monday, probably we will have the presentation and the recording ready in our website and in your mails. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to Giuseppe and Mercedes. Thank you to all of you guys that have been participating, super active. Thank you so much. It's always great to see all this interaction. Normally webinars are like, oh my God, I wish they finished. And this is like, we needed more time. So thank you very much. It's been great having you. I think it was a great start. And we see you soon, hopefully in person.
Thanks, Sandra. Thanks, everyone. See you around.
Goodbye.
Bye.